The desert evening bled into shadows, and the air carried the bitter taste of dust. She was no more than 20, her wrists bound tight with a coarse rope that bit deep into her skin. Each tug only tore her raw, but she kept pulling, breath ragged, hope slipping. Her stepfather stood over her, hat brim low, whiskey staining his breath. His boots crushed the dirt as he leaned close, voice like a rattlesnake. "Cry all you want. Ain't no one comin'." She flinched as his hand cracked across her cheek. A bruise bloomed beneath her eye, the sting sharper than the desert wind. She tried to speak, but the rope at her throat cut off her words. Tears streaked her dusty face as she forced the words out anyway, a whisper carried on trembling lips. I can't survive this," he only laughed, a cruel bark swallowed by the empty horizon. The sound of his spurs clinked as he turned, mounting his horse with a drunken sway. Lantern light swung from his saddle, casting twisted shadows across her broken frame. "You'll be bones by sunrise," he spat, before riding off into the darkness. The silence that followed was heavier than chains. She sagged against the post, chest heaving, ropes burning her skin like fire. Coyotes cried in the distance, their howls circling closer. She shut her eyes, whispering prayers that barely reached the night sky. The camera of fate lingered on details, the rope fibers fraying under strain, the blood on her lip catching moonlight, the sand shifting as if the desert itself mourned her suffering. Her body shivered in the cold, but inside something fierce still smoldered. She bit down hard on the rope, testing its give, fighting for life with every ounce left in her veins. The moon rose higher, casting silver light across the lonely girl tied in the dust. Her shadow stretched long, fragile yet unbroken, as the echo of hooves faded into nothing. She whispered again, softer this time, voice cracked but steady. "I won't die here. Not like this." And though no one yet walked the trail to her rescue, the desert wind carried her words like a promise, that this night of cruelty was only the beginning of her story. The night deepened. Black as coal, and the desert turned cruel. A thin wind scraped across the sand, carrying the cries of coyotes that circled like spirits of the damned. The girl sagged against the post, her wrists swollen where the rope cut into them, every pulse of blood a knife. Her lips were cracked, tongue dry as leather. She tried to swallow, but there was nothing left in her throat. Her eyes darted to the horizon, searching for lantern light, for mercy, but only the endless dark stared back. She tugged again, harder this time. The rope burned hotter, slicing her skin open. She winced but bit down a cry. She knew her stepfather's words too well. "No man's gonna find you out here." His voice echoed in her head. A curse that made her chest tighten. She closed her eyes and saw her mother's face. Soft and warm, whispering lullabies long gone. The memory cut deep, like the difference between what once was gentle and what now was cruel. Tears welled, tracing through the dust on her cheeks, shining faintly in the moonlight. The camera of fate caught it all, the silver glow on the ropes, the trembling of her shoulders, the coyotes edging closer, eyes like embers in the dark. Her body trembled, not just from cold, but from the weight of hopelessness pressing down. She pressed her forehead against the wooden post, whispering through cracked lips, "Please, please don't let me die here." Her breath formed pale mist in the night air. She shifted, twisting wrists, ignoring the sting. Each movement scraped flesh raw, but she kept going, inch by inch. She wasn't ready to let go, not yet. Suddenly, a rock tumbled nearby, rolling down the dry riverbed. The coyotes yipped, closer now, their hunger breaking the silence. She stiffened, heart pounding. Her breaths came shallow, fast. Her body braced against the ropes as if they were her last shield. The desert stretched wide and empty, her voice too weak to carry. But even in that darkness, her whisper rose again, stubborn as a spark against the wind. "I'll survive this, somehow." And though she could not see it yet, far beyond the dunes, a lantern swung in the distance, faint, flickering, carried by the hands of fate drawing nearer with every step. The desert was silent but for the restless wind, carrying with it the smell of sage and dust. She hung there against the post, body trembling, eyelids heavy, when suddenly, a flicker of light broke the darkness. It swung low, then high, bobbing gently with the rhythm of a horse's gait. A lantern, faint but steady, glowed like a star crawling across the horizon. Her cracked lips parted, too weak to call out, yet her eyes widened with desperate hope. The rider slowed. He was a broad-shouldered man, well into his 50s, face carved by years of hard work under the sun. His hat brim shadowed sharp, steady eyes. He reined in his horse, boots hitting the sand with a solid thud. The lantern swayed in his hand as he listened, head tilted to the faint sound of her labored breath. "Who's out there?" His voice rumbled, low and cautious. She tried to answer, but all that came was a dry rasp. Her body sagged forward, and the rope groaned against her weight. The rancher's eyes narrowed. He stepped closer, lantern light spilling over the scene. His jaw tightened at the sight. Her wrists bound bloody, her cheek bruised, her dress torn against the dust. He let out a breath, heavy with anger and sorrow. "Good Lord," he muttered. With a swift pull of his knife, he cut the rope, and she collapsed into his arms like a broken bird. Her voice barely rose above a whisper, trembling against his coat. He'll come back, please." "Don't let him." The rancher steadied her, wrapping his coat around her shivering shoulders. His hand rested firm but gentle, his voice steady as stone. "Easy now. You're safe. Whoever did this, he'll answer for it." He lifted her carefully, setting her on his horse as though she were made of glass. The lantern swung from the saddle again, casting long shadows across the sand as they rode toward the faint outline of his ranch. Behind them, the desert wind swept over the abandoned post. The rope lay frayed and cut, swaying in the night air, a silent marker of cruelty interrupted, and a promise that justice had begun its slow ride. The cabin door creaked open, spilling warm firelight into the cold night. The rancher guided her inside, his hand steady at her back, his lantern casting shadows against the log walls. She stumbled, nearly falling, but he caught her before she hit the floor. "Easy now," he said softly, guiding her to a wooden chair near the hearth. The fire popped and cracked, throwing sparks that danced like tiny spirits. She curled into the seat, clutching the edges of his coat, eyes darting to every shadow as though danger might burst in at any moment. The rancher moved quietly, pouring water into a tin cup. He handed it to her, and her shaking hands brought it to her lips. She drank as though it were the sweetest thing she had ever known, each swallow a fight to stay alive. When the cup was empty, he crouched beside her, studying the bruises across her face and the rope burns on her wrists. His weathered hands trembled as he touched them, not from fear, but from fury. Without a word, he stepped outside and tied the severed rope onto a fence post, an unspoken vow that the man who had left her like that would pay. "Inside," she whispered, voice barely rising above the crackle of the flames. "You shouldn't have brought me here." "He'll come for me. He'll kill you if he knows." The rancher straightened, eyes narrowing beneath the shadow of his hat. His voice was calm, resolute. "Let him try." Her gaze fell to the fire, the flames reflecting in her wide, tear-stained eyes. She wrapped the coat tighter, the weight of it grounding her. For the first time since the ropes cut her skin, she felt a flicker of safety. The rancher sat across from her, silent for a long while, the firelight catching the lines carved deep into his face. At last he spoke again, his words low and steady. "You're safe here now. No one crosses that door without answering to me." The night outside remained vast and cold, but within those cabin walls, the fire burned bright, and for a fleeting moment, hope had found a home. The sun rose slow over the plains, spilling gold across the grasslands. But inside the cabin, the girl's sleep was restless. She stirred at every creak of the timbers, every groan of the wind. The rancher stood at the window, coffee in hand, watching the horizon with eyes that had learned to read danger long before it arrived. By mid-morning, the sound came. Hoofbeats. Slow, deliberate, not the kind of travel that meant passing through, but the kind that meant circling. The rancher's jaw clenched. He set his cup down and reached for the rifle that leaned against the wall. The girl moved to the window, peering out between the curtains. Her breath caught and she stumbled back. "It's him," she whispered, voice trembling. "He's here." The rancher pulled open the door and stepped onto the porch. boots pressed into the dust, rifle cradled easy in his hands. Across the open field, the outlaw sat tall in the saddle, a smirk curling across his face. His horse pawed the ground, restless, as if it too carried the man's rot. The two men locked eyes, silence stretching like a drawn rope. The outlaw spat into the dirt, leaning forward on his saddle horn. "You got something of mine?" he called, voice thick with arrogance. The rancher didn't flinch. His reply came low and cold. "She's not yours. Never was." The outlaw chuckled, a dry, broken sound. He tipped his hat mockingly, eyes glittering with promised violence. Then, without another word, he tugged the reins, turning his horse. Dust kicked up behind him as he rode off slow, deliberate, like a snake retreating into brush to strike another day. The rancher stood still, rifle steady, until the outlaw vanished over the ridge. Only then did he lower the barrel. Inside, the girl hugged herself tight, eyes wet with fear. "He won't stop," she whispered. "He'll come back with more." The rancher closed the door with a heavy hand, setting the rifle back against the wall. His voice carried a quiet vow. "Then I'll be ready." The house felt smaller after that, as though the shadow of the outlaw had slipped in and taken root between the walls, waiting for nightfall. The rancher saddled his horse at first light, the girl wrapped in his coat riding before him. The trail into town stretched long and quiet, the sky painted in pale pinks and grays. Every hoofbeat echoed her fear, but beside it rode the steady calm of the man who had saved her. When they reached town, eyes turned. Folks stopped in their tracks, merchants leaning against wagons, women carrying water, old men on porches. Their gazes dropped to the bruises on her face, the raw burns on her wrists. Whispers spread quick as wildfire. Inside the sheriff's office, the door groaned shut behind them. The sheriff sat behind a scarred wooden desk, hat pushed back, gray stubble shadowing his jaw. His eyes, tired but sharp, fixed on the girl. "Tell me what happened," he said. His voice was steady, though heavy with something like sorrow. The girl hesitated, trembling, until the rancher's hand gave her courage. She spoke, halting, every word dragging pain from her chest. "My stepfather. He tied me out there, left me to die." The sheriff's jaw tightened. He leaned back, sighing through his nose. "Name's been passed through this office before. Thief, drunk, a mean streak long as the Santa Fe Trail. But now," his eyes hardened. "He's crossed a line." The rancher stood tall, voice carrying weight. "He's circling my land. He'll be back." The sheriff rose, holstering his revolver. "Then we'll be waiting. I'll pull 2 deputies from the saloon patrol. They'll ride watch near your ranch." He paused, looking the girl in the eye. "You've got law on your side now. He won't lay another hand on you if I can help it." The girl's lip quivered. She whispered, almost to herself. Law never stopped him before. The sheriff nodded slowly, the lines on his face deepening. "Out here, law only works when men stand with it. And you've got one standing already." He tilted his head toward the rancher. Outside, townsfolk parted as they left, some offering quiet nods, others avoiding the girl's eyes altogether. The weight of gossip hung heavy, but so did something else, expectation, as if the town itself waited to see if justice could still ride in these parts. As they mounted to leave, the sheriff's words echoed after them. "He'll come for her. But this time he won't ride away free." Night fell heavy over the plains, the kind of blackness that swallowed sound. The girl sat by the hearth, knees drawn close, while the rancher checked the shutters one last time. Outside, the lanterns burned low, their glow barely keeping the shadows at bay. Then it came, the distant thunder of hooves. Slow at first, then faster, louder, until the ground itself seemed to tremble. The girl's breath caught in her chest. She whispered, voice breaking, "He's here." The rancher lifted his rifle, jaw tight. "Stay low. Don't move till I say." Through the window, flames appeared, torches bobbing against the darkness. The outlaw rode at the front, his grin wide and feral, 3 men at his back. Their voices cut the night like knives. "Come out, old man!" The outlaw roared. "Hand her over, and maybe I'll let you keep your skin." The rancher stepped onto the porch, rifle raised, firelight licking across his face. His voice rolled out steady, unshaken. You'll never touch her again. Gunfire cracked, the first shot tearing through the silence, shattering the lantern on the fence. Glass rained down, sparks flaring in the dirt. The girl screamed, ducking low behind the table as the cabin shook with the storm of bullets. The rancher fired back, his rifle thundering. One outlaw's torch dropped, flames licking at the dry grass. Horses screamed, men cursed, the night a chaos of smoke and fire. The outlaw sneered from his saddle, pistol flashing. You think you can keep her from me? She's mine. Always was! The rancher's reply came like iron. Not tonight. Not ever again. He pulled the trigger, the shot slamming into the outlaw's hat, spinning it from his head. The man cursed, ducking low, but he didn't fall. Instead, he spurred his horse forward, charging closer as his men circled the house. Inside, the girl clutched the edge of the table, whispering through tears. Please. Don't let him take me. The rancher reloaded, eyes blazing with a fury as old as the land itself. He planted his boots firm, a lone figure against the gang, holding the line with nothing but grit and gunpowder. And as the torches closed in, the night erupted in fire and blood, the rancher standing unyielding while the outlaw came for what he thought was his.